All the Young Dudes by MsKingBean89. Chapter 76, 5th Year. Mooney and Co. The dog, Sirius the dog, barked twice and wagged his tail playfully as Remus picked himself up off the floor. He looked at James and Peter, who were both smiling sheepishly. He looked at the dog again, and it transformed back into Sirius, standing before him with the same mad grin. "You did it," Remus said, tonelessly. "I can't believe you bloody did it." He sat down again, feeling a bit wobbly. "Are you angry with us?" James asked, his eyes huge and earnest. "Can you all do it?" Peter and James looked at each other, then nodded. Remus breathed in, his chest tight. "Go on then," he whispered. "Show me." At once, James and Peter transformed into a huge, regal stag and a fat brown rat. James's antlers scraped the low ceiling of their room so that he had to bow his head slightly. Sirius laughed. "We couldn't choose what we turned into," he explained. "Otherwise, Peter probably would have picked something else." "Oi," Peter said, transforming back. "Rats are highly intelligent creatures. I looked it up." "Shame you're not," Sirius replied. "Not everyone wants to be a big slobbering mutt." James transformed back too, and punched Sirius in the arm. "All right, Bambi, calm down," Sirius smirked, ruffling Peter's hair. "Just having a laugh, aren't we, mate?" Peter smiled back. He did look pretty happy. All of them did. Remus was still speechless. He watched them all as if they were strangers. Had they really done this? Some of the most difficult magic, which required skill, concentration, and, above all, patience. Just for him? "Remus," James asked, looking serious again. "You are angry, aren't you?" Remus frowned, then shook his head. No, not angry. I just..." He rubbed the back of his head, closing his eyes. "I knew you'd do it anyway. I knew you'd try, at least. You never listened to me." "We're sorry," James said, forlorn. Even Sirius had stopped bouncing about. "No, don't be sorry," Remus said, quickly, opening his eyes. "What you've done is amazing. You lot are amazing. I don't know what to say." He cursed himself for not being able to thank them properly, for feeling everything so strongly, but being unable to put any of it into words. What was the point of all that reading if it didn't give you the words when you needed them? He looked up again to find Sirius watching him. His smile was common now, and the light of his understanding shone in his eyes. Remus's heart skipped a beat. "Thank you," he said, quietly, just as Sirius. "Anything for our Mooney," Sirius grinned again, and suddenly everything was back to normal, and the dorm room was just their dorm room, and all of these incredible people were just as friends. "Come on," Sirius said, brightly, addressing all of them. "Let's go down for dinner. We've got a long night ahead of us." "Tonight?" Remus said, surprised. "You want to try it tonight?" Of course, he thought. This is why they chose to reveal themselves at the very last moment. "No time like the present," James smiled. "You can't want to spend another night alone in that horrid shack when you don't have to, Remus," Peter said, earnestly. Remus thought about this as he followed the others down the many stairs and corridors to the great hall. He did not like being alone, right before the moon and right after it. He assumed the wolf didn't like being alone either, judging by the pain it caused him. But he had always done it alone. It had never been a question before. He didn't speak at all through dinner, picking at his plate listlessly. Sirius nudged him every now and then, and Remus threw him a smile, but went back to playing with his roast potatoes. "Remus, you're not eating," Marlene said, concerned. "That's really not like you." He replied, putting his fork down. "I don't feel well. I think I'll go to the hospital wing." "Oh no, again?" Marlene tilted her head in sympathy. "You poor thing." Remus shrugged and got up to leave. The marauders got up too and followed him out. "How are you going to do it?" he asked as he walked, not daring to look at any of them. "Pete's small. He can get us in," James said, eagerly. "Then we'll use the cloak. It's a total fit under now that we can change. Okay, Remus nodded, working it out. Okay, if you can sneak in behind Pumphrey, she puts a lock and charm on the door otherwise. Great, Peter nodded enthusiastically. We'll do it, Remus, we will. Outside the hospital wing, he turned and looked at them all. It helped to be tall at times like this. You know I might kill you all. They looked back at him without wavering. Siri straightened his back. You won't, Remus sighed. Okay, see you in an hour or so then. And then with that, he entered the infirmary without looking back. His heart was hammering in his chest, part excitement, part terror. It was dangerous. It was so dangerous that his head hurt. But he had told them no once before, and this was the result. He could only hope that they were quick enough and clever enough to escape if things went wrong. And if they couldn't escape, he hoped that at least one of them would be brave enough to do what was necessary to ensure the three of them survived, even if it meant he wouldn't. You'll be all right, dear? Madame Pumphrey asked, surveying him with worried eyes. I know the first night is a bad one. It's okay, really, Remus said, sitting down on his little cot as usual. Don't worry about me. I'll see you in the morning. The very crack of dawn, the Menowitch promised. She gave him a quick kiss on the forehead before bustling out of the room. Remus breathed in deeply and looked around. Are you there? He breathed into the empty room. James appeared suddenly, pulling back the cloak. Sirius and Peter quickly followed, transforming back into their animagus forms. I don't think I'll ever get used to that, Remus blinked. He bit his lip nervously and tried to smile, gesturing at the dingy room. Welcome to the Shrieking Shack. Mooney, James said, looking deeply troubled as he took in his surroundings. It's horrible. It's okay. It's better than a cage. It is a cage, Sirius said, sounding fierce. When will it happen? Peter asked suddenly, standing behind the other two. Remus rolled his shoulders carefully to see how the ache was coming along. Not long, he said flatly. 15 minutes, maybe. They were quiet for a bit. When Remus could feel his blood begin to boil and that telltale tingling in his muscles, he suddenly panicked. No one's ever seen it happen before, he said, staring at them all helplessly. I don't think... It's really, really ugly. It's okay, Remus, James said, soothingly. We know what to expect. I might scream. I will scream. It's fine, Sirius promised. You've got your wands? Yup, they all withdrew them to show him. Good, he nodded, looking at the floorboards. His back hurt. He could feel every vertebrae pushing against the skin. If I attack, if you can't control me, you're going to have to... He faltered. It was starting. Change! He shouted, curling up on the bed, facing the wall. Quickly! His nerve endings caught fire, and the transformation began. It hurts, his mind babbled, like a whining child. It hurts, it hurts, it hurts! He started to lose his mind in the agony, aware someone was screaming, until he wasn't Remus anymore, and the screaming was a long, dark hour of anguish. He finally rolled over, his body new and strong and powerful. He sniffed. He knew this place, his prison. He wanted to be free. He wanted to get out and run and hunt and kill. He was so hungry, so restless. He was about to howl again, run at the windows or scratch at the door. He sniffed the air. He was not alone. The wolf turned its eyes on the three animals locked in with it. It growled, jumped down from the bed. It snapped its jaws and stood tall, raising its tail to show dominance. The black one growled too, sniffing at the wolf. It stepped forward and the wolf snarled, still unsure. The black one lay down at the wolf's feet. It rolled over and showed its belly. Friend. The wolf, knowing itself to be the leader now, stopped growling. He recognized the scent of them. He knew they meant no harm. This was his pack, and he was no longer alone. Remus woke up choking and spluttering as he came back into his body. It was dark and dusty like always, and his bones were still sore and tired, and his head still throbbed. But there was no blood. At least he couldn't smell it, couldn't taste it, and the pain was passing quickly, like water down a drain. "Mooney," Sirius's voice broke in, familiar and confident. "Here." Remus felt odd with shame as Sirius handed him a blanket to cover himself. "Thanks," he croaked, wrapping it around himself. He squinted as his vision unblurred, the shapes of his three friends swimming slowly into view. "Everyone okay?" "Fine," Sirius beamed. "Better than fine. It worked, Mooney." "Here, come on." James reached down and helped Remus to his feet, then supported him back over to the little bed. Remus still felt weak, as usual, but that was all. No cuts, no scratches. He had not hurt himself at all. He pulled his blanket tighter around his body and looked up at his three best friends, the dearest people in the world. His eyes filled with tears as he looked down, quickly, embarrassed. "Are you okay?" Sirius asked, sounding worried. "Does it still hurt?" "No," Remus shook his head, smiling. "I'm just being silly." He wiped his eyes and looked at them again. James looked as regal and proud as ever, his glasses slightly askew, dark rings under his eyes, but smiling nonetheless. Peter was pink, flushed with excitement, and Sirius was utterly perfect, glowing as if he had just been handed the Quidditch cup. Remus felt very frail and pathetic, all skinny and naked on the bed beside his heroes. "Was it bad?" he asked, nervously. "The transformation?" "It was pretty awful," James said, honestly. The others nodded. "You're so brave, Remus," Peter burst out. "But afterwards," Sirius said, eager to remember. "Afterwards it was amazing. You weren't sure at first, but then You submitted to me," Remus said. "I remember." "I thought you couldn't remember anything that happened," James asked, cocking his head. "I can't usually," Remus frowned. "But last night was different. I remember it all. It wasn't me exactly, but it wasn't not me either. Does that make sense?" "No," Sirius laughed. Remus laughed too. "You lot better get under the cloak. Madam Pumphrey's on her way." Could, someone pass me my clothes?" Sirius was the last to hide under the cloak. He was alive with joy and kept transforming back and forth, unable to stay still. When they absolutely had to go, he squeezed Remus's shoulder gently, one last time. "Didn't I tell you, Mooney? Didn't I tell you?" he whispered, feverishly. "You did," Remus smiled, weakly. He lowered his voice so that no one else could hear him. He looked at Sirius carefully. "Was it scary? Was I scary?" He had no idea what he looked like in wolf form. Sirius's expression did not flicker. "No," he said, firmly. "You were beautiful."